Welcome to the regular Bellevue City Council meeting for Monday, February 8th, 2021. Clerk, could you please do the roll call?
Sure. Mayor Robinson.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse.
Here.
Councilmember Barksdale.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson.
Present.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn.
I'm here.
Great, thank you.
So we have some sad news today. We lost a real icon in our community over the weekend. Former council member and mayor of Bellevue, Dr. Don Davidson. And I know there are people who are going to miss him and appreciate the devoted service that he did to our community for so many years. And so I have written, I'm going to read a commendation, and I'm going to give the council members opportunity to speak. Many of you served with Dr. Don, and so give you an opportunity to speak. Commendation. Whereas Don Davidson, who served 27 years on this council between 1983 and 2014, including 2 terms as mayor, passed away last week. And whereas a longtime dentist and small business owner, fondly known as Dr. Duck or simply D. Davidson, consistently advocated for balanced budgets and restrained city spending. And whereas when the council was considering how best to manage growth in the 80s and 90s, Davidson supported participation from residents and businesses in a process that led to Bellevue building up downtown and preserving residential neighborhoods. And whereas Davidson was a dedicated advocate for high quality water and supported the formation of the Cascade Water Alliance in the 1980s and was a leader on its board. And whereas a passionate environmentalist, Davidson grew up fishing and canoeing and pushed for salmon recovery while a council representative on regional boards. And whereas a resident for over 50 years, Davidson raised 3 children in the community he loved, observing in his council farewell, Bellevue is a great city with wonderful and involved residents. Whereas Davidson showed a tireless effort on the city's behalf for supporting interests and issues that benefit the people who live, work, and visit Bellevue. I, Lynn Robinson, Mayor of Bellevue, and on behalf of its City Council, do hereby commend Dr. Don Davidson for his unwavering devotion, impact, and 4 decades of public service to the City of Bellevue and its residents. God bless him and his family. So let's see. Council members, Robertson, would you like to start us out?
Sure. Yeah, I served with Don for 4 years. He was the first mayor right after I was elected. And, you know, there's a lot to say about Don. He had an indelible imprint on this city. A story that many people may not have heard is, you mentioned in the commendation, Mayor, about how his vision for the growth in downtown and how that helped set the city on that trajectory. And it's absolutely true. At the time the downtown plan was happening, there was a split among the council between pro-growth and anti-growth factions. And he believed so much in the vision for Bellevue that he actually jumped seats and ran against an anti-growth colleague and won the seat. And that's what finally decided the direction of the city. So that was a pretty bold act on his part. And he loved this city. He loved the people. He was always in good cheer. And as you mentioned, he was absolutely passionate about water issues. He was an avid fly fisherman. And even after he left the council, he represented fishing on the WIRA board. He continued to be involved in this city. He, at the time of his death, was on the East Side Heritage Center Board of Directors, attending meetings from hospice. So he only missed 1 meeting right before he died. So he was absolutely involved and he just loved this city. And he always had a good word to say about people. And like I said, he had a huge heart and he couldn't have done it without his family and his wife, Sue. It was very apparent to everyone that knew him how much his two great loves, well, three great loves were this city, fishing, and his wife, number one, first of all, wife and family. So was so sorry to hear of his passing, but I absolutely honor his long and distinguished record of service to Bellevue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes, you served with Dr. Dunn.
Yeah, I certainly did. I appreciate all the comments that Councilmember Robertson said. And particularly what I wanted to talk about, a couple of things. One is that Don Davidson was, as she said, an avid fisherman, and that was one big connection I had with him. I was the alternate to the Keene Conservation District when it was undergoing its kind of a turmoil and reformation after a lot of illegal issues and everything. And we had big meetings with different groups and working together. And he got sick during that time period, and very quickly, and he was at the meetings, but he encouraged me to be involved, and in fact, very graciously asked me to fill in the seat. And so I became involved in that, ended up being chair of that for about 5 years. And Don came to meetings at the beginning of it, but he was always there, and we talked a lot about things. And so it was really gracious on his part. But we had a lot of good conversations about how to make things work. So I appreciated that. And the other thing tied in again with fishing is that also been involved with the our 8 Salmon Recovery Council for some time. And Don was a member on that. First, he represented Save the Kings, and then he represented, I think actually the Washington Policy Center the last year or so. Don always came to the meetings, even when, and I was on it, and then I've been chairing that meeting also. And so again, Don was one who would come forward and talk about, both the issues that we were dealing with, the financial parts, all these different things, and had a lot of good advice. But the main thing was he always wanted to make sure we protected fishies. It was always the fishies for Don. And as Jennifer said, that was a passion of his, and I really learned a lot from him. The other factor that you have to give him credit for in terms of the future and ongoing, and at the time of Bellevue, is that Don was mayor in December 2011 when the city council voted for light rail. That was not necessarily what he would have done in the, by himself, but Don was very forward-looking in terms of Bellevue, and I think that was another sign of his ability to work across different lines and different viewpoints and come to a very good decision. So we have lost a very strong citizen and former colleague, and I really learned a lot from Don, and I'm sorry to see this happen, but that's life, and he's left a great legacy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Lee, I think you served at least 2 decades with Dr. Don Davidson.
I've served more than 20 years with Don. We're a very close colleague. It's a sad day, really. We all have missed him, but we're going to be even missing him more so. Words cannot express what I feel, and I don't think I have hours to say it. But I want to be brief. But the point is, he just loves the city. He loves Bellevue. He loves its people. And, he got his dentist degree from University of Washington, and he practiced dentistry. When he's doing that, he gets to know a lot of people in Bellevue who are his patients, who became his patients. And I was one of them. And he just loves to come up with ideas and tinker with dentistry. And because his love for Bellevue, he devotes his love and energy and passion to serving the city to figure out what he can do to make the city a better place for everybody. And that takes support of the whole family. You know, his wife, Sue, she worked along with him and supported him and allows him to be so engaged and involved. And like Jennifer Robertson was saying that, you know, split council, Bellevue Council, it's always split. That's no easy job. And to be a mayor of City of Bellevue and to make things happen, to accomplish things, that's not an easy task. That's difficult, that's challenging. But, you know, it takes somebody like Don who wants everybody to like him, but he stays true to his value, to what he believes is important. That, you know, as his contribution to make Bellevue a better place, make a place better for everybody for the future. And so, you know, one of the things that is most important, people sometimes don't know about, because we tend to see things in physical, concrete things. What you did, you know, you did that, you built a building, some project gets happened. But the one thing that really made the difference is when a couple of us, Ron Smith and myself, got elected to the city council. And Don, we were able to get Don the majority to be the mayor. And he was able to work along with everybody. And one of the things that's most important that made the biggest difference is fiscal responsibility. When we got the council, we changed the city's property tax responsibility tax. You know, we actually find out we have to tax people for what we need to do, not just tax people because the money is available. As a result, he was very, very good. And I think that applies to most of us on the council. The one thing that's not split on the Bellevue Council is we're all very much as financially responsible. We know the stewardship of fiscal responsibility. And during his mayorship, we got together with George Zumdike, Don Davidson, myself, and Ron Smith. We were able to not collect property tax for the next 10 years because we didn't need it. We have lots of healthy economy, healthy tax revenue from businesses, for property tax increases because people continue to come to Bellevue to live. So as a result, we didn't need it. And so as a result, we didn't collect it. And that has become the model of the whole state of Washington. It first of all went to become the county's way of collecting tax. They put the limit on it. Eventually, state tax. You know, we cannot automatically, before Bellevue changed its tax structure, used to be every year, property tax goes up 6% automatically. Amazing. And so that really sets a real good model example for how we should look at, without residents, without taxpayers' money. And so that's just an example. There are many, many, which has been mentioned before. You know, he is a great enthusiast. He likes to make sure he's interested in fish, in water, but at the same time, he's very balanced. He's practical. He loves salmon. He likes to eat fish. So in order to have good fish, we're gonna have good water. We have a good system to provide a good environment that things actually can be sustained. That's important. So I really have a lot more to say, but I think I'm just gonna stop here, and we're gonna miss him a lot. And hopefully, we want to make sure Sue, we think of her and, Don and herself and her family is going to be in our prayer, in our thoughts. So thank you, Don, and we miss you.
Thank much. It's a lovely tribute from everybody. I also know that Dr. Davidson was so supportive of the children in our community, especially at the Bellevue Youth Theater. And I remember him having a starring role in Wizard of Oz, I think it was, or some variation of that. So he was really engaged, and he loved what's coming next. So we have our flag salute coming, and we were able to—
Can I add one thing? John, sorry, Mayor. It's Singing in the Rain. It's Bellevue Youth Theater. He and I were in the play, in the part. So thank you.
Thank you for that. So some special guests tonight meet us in the flag salute. It is Mrs. McKenna's second grade class from St. Louis in Bellevue. And City Clerk, if you could please play the video, you feel free to say the pledge along with them.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very nicely done. Speedy too. I like that. Okay. So we have an agenda item 3A, and Councilmember Robertson is going to recuse herself from participating in that item. So Councilmember Robertson, would you like to remove yourself? There you go. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So resolution 9882 is before us tonight. I'm going to ask the city attorney, Kathy Gerla, to walk us through consideration of this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution 9892 relates to the legal representation of Councilmember Robertson in judicial proceedings concerning recall charges that were filed with the King County Elections Department on February 1st of this year. Pursuant to state law, specifically RCW 4.96.041 subsection 3, a local government may pay the necessary expenses of defending an elected official in a judicial hearing that will be held in County Superior Court to determine the sufficiency of a recall charge. And the local government may choose to also pay the costs associated with an appeal of, if any, of the Superior Court's decision in the recall proceeding. In order for those legal expenses to be paid, first, the elected official must request a defense, which Councilmember Robertson has done. The legislative authority of the local government must approve the payment of the defense costs, and then the attorney representing the local government must also approve the payment of those costs. The resolution that's before you tonight, if approved, would constitute the legislative authority's approval of Councilmember Robertson's defense costs and includes the costs of any appeal. Should the council vote tonight to approve the payment, I am prepared as a city attorney to also approve the payment of those costs, which would be the last step necessary for those costs to be authorized by the city. Finally, just to clarify for the record, the council's consideration of this resolution tonight is not a statement about or a vote on the merits of the recall charges. It's the role of the courts to decide whether the recall charges on their merits satisfy the criteria necessary for which a recall petition may legally be filed. And the courts will do that in this process. The vote on the resolution before you tonight is only about whether to authorize the payment of Councilmember Robertson's legal defense costs as the state allows the council to do. So that concludes my report. Mayor Robinson, I will turn this back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So is there a motion to adopt the resolution?
I move to adopt resolution 9892, authorizing payment of the legal expenses necessary to represent Councilmember Jennifer Robertson in judicial proceedings concerning the recall charges filed with King County Elections on February 1st, 2021.
Second.
I second.
Second by Councilmember Stokes first. Any discussion or comments? I can see you, so if you want to raise your hand, you have a comment or a question, feel free. I'm not seeing any. Oh, Councilmember Stokes, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say briefly that the point of this is to really assure that all council members have equal access to the court process designed by the legislature to weed out frivolous or false charges. And that's what we're doing tonight. And I think it's a positive thing to do. Thank
you. Any other questions or comments? I think this is, but for the grace of God go I moment. And so with that, all those in favor to adopt resolution 9892, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great, thank you. So can we invite Councilmember Robertson back in?
Yes, I have invited her back into the meeting.
Okay. While she's rejoining us, I'm going to go ahead with the oral communications. City Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for oral communications?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight there are 2 pre-registered speakers. And with that, I will call the first speaker, who is Diana Thompson. And Ms. Thompson, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm back on.
Say yes.
Oh, thanks, Jennifer. Yes. Councilmember Robertson, thank you. Diana Thompson, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. Your time begins now. Thank you.
Okay, I reside in Bellevue at 3115 103rd Avenue Northeast, and I'm here to request that the city oppose Washington state legislative bills, which if enacted will either restrict or prevent cities from making decisions on housing and zoning issues, which are presently decided locally. The bills cover such topics as what is required or prohibited in areas zoned for single-family residence, whether ADUs should be allowed, and if so, under what conditions, required residential parking, the number of unrelated people who can reside in a home, number of housing units which can be constructed on an acre. And there are other things these bills cover as well. All urban cities are not the same as Bellevue is. And in Bellevue, all residential areas are not the same. And Bellevue residents should have opportunity to give input when zoning changes are considered. And if passed, the residents of Bellevue will have considerably less input. Here are some bills which cause my concern: 1157 and Companion Bill 5390. These bills require at least 6 net dwelling units per acre for areas zoned for housing. 1337, that requires that cities adopt specified policies regarding accessory dwellings in order to qualify for funds from an accessory dwelling unit incentive account. City residents clearly would like input on ADUs. Next bill, 5235, it's worded a little bit strangely, but the bill appears to prohibit a city from requiring the property owner to live on the property when there is an ADU. And again, this is something I believe many city homeowners would oppose. And this bill also generally would prohibit local governments from limiting the number of unrelated people that could, unrelated adults that are able to occupy a home. And Bellevue, as you know, in most cases currently allows but 4 unrelated adults in a home. Final bill I'm going to talk about is 5269. And this bill, if enacted, would require that to access the levy increase discussed in the bill, the cities would need to allow in areas zoned for detached single-family residence the percentage of duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes sixplexes, etc., that are mandated by the bill. And this bill also contains parking requirements. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening is Chris Buchanan. And Chris Buchanan, can you hear me?
I should be unmuted now. Can you give me a thumbs up?
You are, thank you. Your time begins now.
My name is Chris Buchanan, and I'm with DASH, Downtown Action to Save Housing. We are a Washington state nonprofit founded here in Bellevue, and our mission is to provide affordable housing for local workforce, families, and seniors. Glendale was one of our first properties, and back when we acquired it, I think it's what we would now call naturally occurring affordable housing. But I think back then we just called it old apartments. And for over 25 years, DASH has maintained these apartments and grown a community there. Now we'd like to reinvest and revitalize Glendale so more of Bellevue's workforce and seniors can benefit from the opportunities provided by sustainable, affordable housing. Now, if all of this sounds familiar, it's because we submitted this same comprehensive plan amendment back in 2018 to increase density at Glendale. That CPA was expanded to include Evergreen Court, and it passed threshold review. Many of you were there, I remember, and you supported our efforts. Council members Barksdale and Zahn, Robertson, Stokes, Lee, and Mayor Robinson, you wanted to do better than NMU. And with the intent of providing more density than we'd get otherwise, you moved us into the Wilburton study area. And did you know that under that neighborhood plan, we'd have seen building heights of 70 to 100 feet and at least FAR 2. And that'd be great. But the Wilburton plan is stalled out. It's no longer an active work plan. We understood that risk in 2018, that we'd be back in the comprehensive plan amendment process if Wilburton didn't work out. So here we are. And once again, I'm before you tonight to advocate for increased density on these properties without delay. With added density, these parcels could be transformed into a vibrant, age-friendly, affordable neighborhood, providing housing that Bellevue's working families and seniors desperately need. And finally, I just want to take a moment to thank staff for their technical expertise and guidance and unwavering support through this process. Nicholas Matz, thank you. You've been a champion for affordable housing in Bellevue. Thanks. And those are my remarks.
Thank you. And at this time, that is the end of our pre-registered list. We do still have additional time for oral communications. So at this point, I would ask if there is anyone in the meeting who would like to provide oral communication to the council. If so, please use the raise hand function or *9 if you're connected with a phone. And I do see one additional hand. So at this point, I need to make mention that the subject of any further communication to the council, if it's related to the recall petition filed against Councilmember Robertson, pursuant to the State Public Disclosure Commission requirements on the use of public facilities in relation to a ballot measure, the council can only hear comment on the decision to fund the necessary expenses of Councilmember Robertson for legal fees, not the actual merits of the recall petition itself. So with that rule in mind, I will call on the one additional speaker, and that is Heidi Dean. Ms. Dean, can you hear me?
I can, thank you.
Great, your time begins now.
Thanks so much. So I just wanted to voice my support for the DASH Glendale group, because we were also, Newport Hills was also on the docket back in 2018 with a developer that wanted to upzone us to NMU. It was completely inappropriate zoning for Newport Hills, but it's actually incredibly appropriate zoning for DASH. And I completely support that. I think it's a great location. So as somebody who's been through that process, I wanted to show support. I did see that on that you won't be receiving an oral report tonight from Parks Board, but that you did receive a written report. And I wanted to go on record again, as I did email you, that the park naming process, that the discussion that happened in November was, again, by my opinion, was not robust. As a matter of fact, there are a lot of people that are very upset about the disrespect that was shown to Mr. Shannon O'Neill and his family, given the discussion. We know that the park over Northeast Bellevue, or Northwest Bellevue, excuse me, that is currently named after Georgia Zumdiak, had a name change. And we know why, that there was some icky background with the person that was originally named for. And so I understand that there was a suggestion to vet Mr. O'Neill and anybody that was going to be a namesake for our park. He actually has history with our neighborhood. He is like the godfather of our neighborhood. And the unfortunate thing is that he was just, that suggestion was basically pushed to the side by kind of a majority of the Parks Board members, as they concentrated on Borghild Ringdahl, who already has a school named after her right next to that park property and who has zero to do with our neighborhood. And what really upset me and upset many people in our neighborhood when they found out about it is that Borghild Ringdahl, was not held to the same vetting standards that Shannon O'Neill was going to be held to. So apparently it was okay to look into his background for icky history, but they've just shoved her right through as a recommendation without looking into her background. That's not equitable, and it's sexist. And I would like for you to please take into consideration Newport Hills and what we'd like to see and what represents us when considering the naming process for our park that we waited, 9-10 years for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mayor, at this time, I do not see any additional hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to move on to reports of boards and commissions. And we do have in our packet a Parks and Communities quarterly update, which you have an opportunity to read. And we're not going to have a presentation or discussion, but I wanted to give our council liaison, council members an opportunity to speak to us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would say that I want to thank Chair Trescasis and the board members for their commitment to the Parks Board and the work that they have done, working very diligently. They thought it was important to provide regular updates as part of their work to the council. And so on a quarterly basis, they will be providing these updates just so that you have an opportunity to stay informed about the work of the Parks Board. And they look forward to serving the council in terms of other directives or initiatives that we might want to have them work on. They stand ready and quite excited to help in any way they can.
Great. Thank you, council members on. Okay, now reports of the city manager, Mr. Miyake.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. I have one item under the city manager's report this evening, and that is a brief update on the Utilities Advanced Meter Infrastructure, also known as AMI project. And this update is as it relates to challenges from COVID and what the work plan looks like moving into 2021. Joining us tonight is Brian Bartle, the Deputy Director of the Utilities Department, for a brief update. This is informational and no type of direction is required by council this evening. So Brian.
Thank you. So I'm sharing my screen now. Is that up for folks to see?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, great. So good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhuis, council members, and City Manager Miyake. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight on the Utilities AMI Smart Metering Project. As you know, this is a key foundational element of our smart city approach and something we are very excited to have underway. So tonight, as was mentioned, this is an informational briefing only to inform council on the status of the project. No action is required. I'm going to start off with a brief background and refresher on previous council actions, and then provide an update on the project and finish with our plan for next steps in 2021. So as many of you may recall, the smart water meter journey has been with many years in the making. Utilities started with a business case analysis, which was completed in 2016. This analysis was presented to the ESC and council and adopted in December of 2016. With that action, we proceeded to develop an RFP and complete a selection process. Itron was selected and council approved their contract in December of 2018. As the project progressed, we made a pivot in our technology selection, and in December of 2019, council approved amendment number 1, in which we switched from pole-mounted collectors to a cellular solution. Cellular technology is a next generation offering, and we were excited to make this change. Additionally, using a cellular backbone removes the city's need to maintain our own collector network. As with everything in 2020, COVID has presented a few challenges to our AMI project. There is good news, which I will address in the next slide. However, there has been a challenge to the production and delivery of cellular transmitters. Throughout the past year, laboratory and production facilities have experienced intermittent disruptions, which in turn has affected Itron's ability to procure the cellular transmitters. To keep the project on schedule, we are sliding our start date for transmitter installation out by approximately 6 months. However, we have developed a strategy to compress our installation schedule and keep the end date near mid-2022, as envisioned in amendment number 1. Itron has agreed they can deliver the project effectively with this compressed schedule. Good news, not everything was impacted by COVID. While residential meter exchanges are typically fairly quick, taking 15 to 20 minutes, a commercial meter may take upwards of a half to a full day. Utilities, in partnership with our vendor Itron, completed our commercial meter work in 2020 as planned in amendment number 1. Given that the majority of commercial buildings had limited use during COVID, most of the work could be completed during daylight hours. This allowed our vendor to proceed faster and safer with the commercial meter work. The left photo is at City Hall. This was the first meter exchanged and was completed in May of 2020. The City Hall meter is a 4-inch meter, not extremely large, but you can see it takes multiple people, lifting equipment, and involves working inside a small vault. The second photo is at Overlake Hospital. Overlake has 6 different meters serving the hospital. Through close coordination with the hospital, we were able to complete all meter installations and keep the hospital fully operational during these challenging COVID times. At this time, about 90% of the citywide commercial meters have been changed out for AMI compatible meters. While completing the commercial meter work, we had 0 customer calls or complaints regarding the installation of meters. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the team for following all the strict safety protocols, including COVID requirements for masks and hand sanitizer. So I'm sure that 2021 will bring its own challenges. However, here is an early look at what we have planned this year. In the upcoming weeks, Council will see on the consent agenda an amendment for the AMI contract. This is a no-cost amendment with a few contractual changes to facilitate the compressed schedule and allowing our project to start with approximately 10,000 early residential meter exchanges. If you recall, I mentioned that we have developed a plan that holds the end date of the project, even though we are sliding the start date. To do this, our vendor will begin installing meters without transmitters similar to the commercial installations completed in 2020. Installing these meters early will aid in meeting our schedule. Public notices will be starting soon to those households included in the early phase. Additionally, this amendment will direct us to work with our vendor on some early testing prior to mass deployment. With that, I'll wrap up this evening. Thank you for your time today. The Utilities Department appreciates Council's continued interest and support of this critical smart city project.
Thank you very much. Once I can see everybody, I'll open it for comments or questions. You can just raise your hand if you'd like to say anything. I think this is just a wonderful example of how the city of Bellevue is handling COVID. You know, we got delayed for a little bit, but we're back on track, and you're going to stay on schedule and no increased costs. That's just amazing. So thank you so much. I don't see any comments or questions, so we will move on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Okay. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Okay. We have a study session item here. Oh, this is a great update. Mr. Miyake, would you like to introduce this?
Good evening, Mayor Robinson, council members. Yes, we have 2 items under study session this evening, and indeed, this is a great topic for tonight to talk to the council about. This is an informational briefing on the ways that the city has adapted at Mini City Hall to provide an ease of access to information and city services throughout the pandemic. Joining us this evening is Mike McCormick-Huntleman, the Assistant Director, as well as Ian Carlson, Mini City Hall Supervisor from the Community Development Department. This is just informational only, no formal directions is being asked of the council, but obviously we're here to answer any questions you might have. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Mike. Mike?
Thank you, City Manager Miyake. I'm going to thank you, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse, Council. It's really good to be with you tonight. As you know, Mini City Hall plays a vital role for the city in providing culturally competent information and referral services to our residents. This is especially true both with our immigrant community as well as some of our more vulnerable residents. And being on the front lines, it's also an important way during the year that we listen to residents as well and learn from them what's most important and what some of their changing needs are. So as was mentioned, tonight is really an informational only briefing. We do want to provide you with some information both on how COVID-19 and this pandemic is playing out in the community, as well as some of the trends that we're hearing from residents and ways that we're responding to improve our access to information for residents so they can be connected to city services. And with that, I want to turn things over to Ying Carlson. She is our Mini City Hall Supervisor. Ying?
Thank you, Mike. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse, and council members. I'm grateful for the opportunity here tonight to share an update with you about the Crossroads Mini City Hall program. This is the agenda for our presentation. I'll go over a little bit about the background on Mini City Hall, COVID impacts on our operation, and concerns and issues that we are hearing from the community, and a few initiatives that we have implemented to support the Bellevue community in need. And then we'll talk a little bit about next steps for our program this year. So as you know, right, more than 2 decades ago, as our community was becoming more and more diverse, the city recognized the importance of reaching out to residents with diverse backgrounds. Mini City Hall was established in 1996 based on this philosophy that we need to serve people where they are. Having Mini City Hall right in the heart of Crossroads Shopping Center, a very well-known gathering place in Bellevue in a very diverse neighborhood, makes our services very accessible and welcoming, especially to those who are new to the city, disabled, or have language or cultural barriers. Over the years, we have learned that people don't come to Mini City Hall just asking for city services. They also have needs that the city cannot fulfill. So whenever we see a new need or a service gap, we will always partner with nonprofit organizations to bring that service to our customers at Mini City Hall. And we have on average, about 5 to 10 ongoing partnerships each year, such as healthcare or a computer coach partnership with the library, HopeLink, or the Chinese Information Service Center. Along with many of our community partners, we serve more than 20,000 people and responds to about 40,000 requests in a typical year. Now, these requests range from simply paying a water bill to I'm in a domestic violence situation and need a place to stay with the night with my children. Or I don't speak good English, where can I get help open a new business in Bellevue? So our program is supported by multilingual staff, community partners, and volunteers in more than 10 languages. And people tell us all the time how special it is to learn about city government and receive community resources in their native language. So COVID has a big impact on our operation at Mini City Hall. We had to close our physical location back in March of 2020 and transition to remote services to the community, just like everyone else. Naturally, we have seen a decrease in number of individuals served overall due to all of our community partners not able to physically serve customers anymore. However, we have seen an increase in human service needs as percentage of the overall request. Now you can see the graphs here back in 2018 and 19, the percentage of human services requests were somewhat consistent, right? At 56, 57%. And then this past year in 2020, it has jumped to 70%. And we have noticed that when people call us, their issues are more complex, that the conversations are more involved and with multiple requests. And if you add language and cultural barriers to the mix, and it just takes staff much longer to locate the right resources. And I think that's really reflective of how much folks continue to struggle during the pandemic and in need of human service support. Most of our clients learn about Mini City Hall through word of mouth. Our reputation as a safe and trusted place. Mini City Hall staff are trained to be active listeners who keep our ears to the ground. We pay attention to what our residents are asking for. What are their concerns? What services are needed, right? So we are also very intentional about gathering that input from the community and bringing that voice back to City Hall. As you know, the pandemic has a devastating impact on the health and financial well-being of our community. And some of the common themes from talking to folks in the community throughout this past year are isolation, especially seniors who live alone, and language barriers for immigrants and unemployment. Many people lost their jobs and saw their hours reduced. Immigration issues and legal referrals continue to be some of the most common requests we get at Mini City Hall. Finding affordable housing, needing rental or utility assistance also increased quite a bit. We are also seeing many first timers trying to ask for help that they had never asked for before. Since the pandemic began, we have heard so many heartbreaking stories and how much people continue to struggle. Just last week, for example, I was helping someone to locate financial resources to pay their water bill and rent. And this particular client lost her health insurance because she lost her job and was kind of really hard to make their water bill payment and then their rent payment as well for the 7th month. So she has to continue to pay her internet bill. She was telling me that because even though she can't afford it, because her 2 little kids will need that for online lessons, right? So it's just a really tough situation. So you know that these are not just numbers and they are real people being impacted by the pandemic right here in our community. So seeing the increase in community demands, Mini City Hall pivoted to expand access and provide various ways for the community members to connect to resources they need. And we knew that we had to target our assistance to the most vulnerable people. And that's why we created the COVID-19 Resource Navigator program. The program focuses on providing timely, personalized, and multilingual resources to the public with a focus on a pandemic response. Residents are able to schedule a 30-minute appointment with a resource navigator, and appointments are also available in English, Mandarin, Cantonese, Somali, and many other languages. Navigators will research your questions and customize solutions to best fit each situation and help families who need that little extra support, right, in these challenging times. And many agencies are really overwhelmed right now with so many requests. So a lot of times people are just thrilled just to get a live person actually pick up the phone and listen to them. And this is especially true for many folks who are first timers who are trying to access resources. It can be a very daunting process and stressful. So the navigator can do a little bit of a hand-holding and provide support to help people in need. And we are also seeing that these are really valuable opportunities to connect with the community and kind of hear from them directly about what's on their mind. Now, we also know that not everyone is computer savvy, so we also put together a paper form of COVID-19 resource guide to highlight the most relevant social services available in the community. And these are being distributed to food banks, schools, grocery stores to make it accessible to people in need. And another way for people to access resources is this interactive community resource map that the staff at Mini City Hall created. It puts the information at your fingertips, right? So resources are grouped and categorized by service type, including social services, agency address, links, phone number, and a short bio of the services. The comprehensive map provides community members the ability to kind of navigate and access resources available locally and regionally on their own. And it also connects to the My Bellevue app, and there's a widget on there. If you would like to talk to someone or you look at the resource and you just say, wow, that's just too much and I would like someone to help me sort it out, you can click on it and it will connect you right to the COVID resource navigator. So as you can see, in a way, many of these tools and programs are connected. So we have multiple touch points with the community and that people can choose the platform that they are most comfortable with and get the help they need during these challenging times. Now, even though we have shifted our focus to pandemic response, Mini City Hall remains very committed to our mission to provide information and access to those who are new to our community. We want to continue to welcome new residents. We put together this welcome resource guide for newcomers to Bellevue, and it covers a wide range of topics. And we have created this based on years of experience serving newcomers, seeking information and connection at Mini City Hall. An extensive outreach effort will be prioritized with schools, property managers of apartment complexes, realtors, faith organizations in the community, since they are often these are first contact that people make when they move to Bellevue. We believe that building community and making stronger connections are especially important right now during these times of isolation. So Mini City Hall will focus its effort this year on developing new partnerships with community organizations to provide services that are urgently needed, outreach to vulnerable and underrepresented populations, and building trust with our diverse community has always been the signature service of Mini City Hall and will continue to remain a priority as well. And additionally, Mini City Hall will be working with the Bellevue Conflict Resolution Center to assist the community members with rent and mortgage negotiation, especially those who have limited access to, due to language and cultural barriers. Staff for Mini City Hall will also provide strong support to the utility rate reduction program, which starts this month and will continue throughout the year. And with that, I'm closing my presentation. Thank you so much for your interest and continued support.
Thank you, Ying. That looks great. Just amazing what's being offered there. I'd like to give everybody a chance to make comments or ask questions. And I was just making my list really quickly here, so excuse me for 1 second. Okay, so we'll go Councilmember Barksdale, Deputy Mayor Newhouse, Councilmember Stokes, Robertson, Zahn, Lee, and then me. So starting with Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Ying and other staff for this this work. I think it's really cool to see the map, Mike, to you as well. It's really cool to see the map and making it easier for people to access, identify the resources available, and also the welcoming guide. Really appreciate that. I think it's an important resource for helping people get connected once they get here. I mean, that's one of the things I've heard is some of the challenges as well with people really connecting. So I just have one question. How do we learn, or are we tying what we hear from the community right now as you're engaging into the human needs assessment survey design, so that we can kind of get a sense of, how prevalent and, what are some of the other attributes that relate to, people who are having difficulty right now?
Yeah, so we are in regular communication internally with Human Services, division and the Parks Department and even the emergency management staff. We actually have a tracking system that we have at many city halls. So it's a high level tracking system. When people ask for requests, and we kind of track that service, and then we can run a report and find out, what people are asking for and the percentage. And then we provide that to the human service updates as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and Yang and Mike, thanks for the great presentation. This is such a great and needed resource in our community. And I appreciate Councilmember Barksdale's question about feeding this information into our Human Services Commission. That's so critically important. And that was actually one of my first questions is, during this time of the pandemic, has this, well, first, have we seen an increase in any one request, or what has been the most requested issue or something that they need some assistance with? And also, has it revealed any gaps in our service that maybe wasn't exposed before, but during this pandemic it has, and maybe what steps we can do to alleviate that?
I would say the most popular requests that we hear from the community are like rent and utility assistance, especially the rent. Many folks are really behind on their rent. Mm-hmm. And then legal assistance and kind of immigration referrals continue to be top ones for us. Okay. And then during the pandemic, obviously healthcare access is a big one. Lots of folks kind of lost their jobs, and then that being gone would be their employers sponsor insurance. So we are kind of partnering with some like the International Community Health Services. They are a nonprofit and a clinic as well. And then they are kind of providing folks with, enrolling in Obamacare and just providing the extra little support to kind of guide them through that. Okay. Yeah, right. And we'll continue to kind of look at the data and the resources and we have and expand to just new partnerships and see how we can actually fulfill all those gaps.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then the vast majority of the contact that you have with residents, are they actual calls?
Yeah, most of them are calls.
Okay, so that's the other thing I wanted to get to and talk a little bit about the digital divide here. So a lot of these folks then are not able to get to this information because do they not have internet access, or are they able to at all access the app? Are we the My Bellevue app? Are we tracking that information as well?
Yeah, I think there's a way to track that. I would say the majority of people they were just calling us. I think lots of people are, they already kind of have a relationship with us, and then they have trust in us, and they know Mini City Hall, and they would just call us. And then, because a lot of services are word of mouth, right? So we have also in communications with service providers in the community, and then people are newcomers or people never asked for help before, and kind of getting that information on like on the flyers and our brochures and food banks and kind of word of mouth, and people are calling us. I would say most of them are calling us and kind of asking for resources that way.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Yang and Mike. It really is an amazing program, and you've done quite well in all these weird circumstances we're under now. And I appreciate the things you've said already about what you've been doing and kind of differences and how you approach things. Just a couple of questions that you may not have complete answers right now, but like, kind of think about them is, what are you doing different, or what would you do different going forward that you were doing pre-pandemic? I mean, what changes have you made in terms of your approach and services, if any?
I'm not sure if I'd call that a change, but like I think our staff are, I think the active listening piece is much bigger because we're not able to do in person. So while we're providing phone assistance, you just have to really do your active listening and kind of, doing that, repeating back to folks and kind of getting their interest and getting, what requests they're really asking, hearing their stories, right? Kind of like getting that information out of them and then making that connection. on the phone. I think that's, one piece that I think our staff are really good at actually, and we're doing more and more. We definitely noticed that during the pandemic that we are providing that active listening piece, that people are calling us and making that connection. It's a little bit of a change, I would say.
Okay, no, because it's like a lot of other things. Things are so different now. They're not going to be the same as they were beforehand. So it's good to hear sounds like you've got some lessons learned or different ways of doing things, and that sounds great. Are there any overall lessons you've taken from this in terms of the approach, or does it sound pretty much like we have a really good program? It's just a matter of kind of stepping up or doing things a little different?
Yeah, I think you're right. And also I think, going forward, we have always been doing this, right? Like anytime there's a new need that we are noticing that people are kind of asking different things. And right now, for example, people are asking about rent assistance. We see an increase of that quite a bit. So we have to think about partnerships in terms of like what organizations out there in the community that we can partner with, that we can form a new partnership that we can actually bring that service to folks. When people call, we can already have the connection with that organization. And then we can quickly link them to that services, right? So we'll be partnering with the Bellevue Conflict Resolution Center internally and kind of like streamline that services a little bit. So when people call and we have the language support there, we have the relationship already built and kind of just, streamline that process a little bit.
It really sounds like you've done a great job in kind of moving things forward. I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Member Robertson.
Thanks. What a great presentation. I love this mini city hall. It's been there for what, 15 years now?
25 years.
25. Okay, even longer than I thought. Time just flies when you're having fun, right? So I mean, in those 25 years, Bellevue's only gotten bigger and more diverse. And so doing the outreach, getting to where people are, making sure people can access their local government, which I always call the government of first resort rather than the government of last resort, because we're closest to the people, I think is really, really important. And I really appreciate the resource guide and the welcome guide. I mean, we used to have welcome wagons. My neighborhood sometimes still does, but this is a great way to welcome people to the community. So one of the things I think I've talked about before, probably the last time you were here, was that we have a community policing center we did at Victoria Mall, and that is undergoing redevelopment. I think that it would be really great to work with the owners as they're redeveloping to explore the idea. And of course, it's a budget issue. It has to come back in the budget of having a second mini city hall, because that way we would have, access to government services in 3 areas of the city. And I think that would be really helpful. I don't know how much we partner with other third places, Crossroads and Victoria. These are third places where people gather and where community connections happen. So if we're not already partnering with the library to put information available, because a lot of people go there for information, I think we should be, because getting people information is really important. On the phone call, since so much is coming on the phone, we have people at mini city hall and we have people at regular city hall. Is there any coordination in handling phone calls between the 2 buildings?
We refer to each other all the time. It depends, right? I think Mini City Hall has a little bit of reputation of like serving folks with language barriers. So we do get referred from main City Hall and other departments, when folks have a language barrier issue or they need more further assistance with human service needs. So we refer back and forth with each other all the time.
Okay, great. I assumed that we were coordinating that closely, but I just wanted to verify that. The other thing I would be curious to know about is how closely we're tracking all the requests for services, whether they come in at mini city hall, whether they come in at city hall, because, we always do a budget survey to the community. But this is different than that. And so I think that it would be really useful to have the data on what kinds of requests we get and how we're able to serve them, and the number and how it's changed over time, to have that ahead of our budget. Because if we know that there's, for example, more requests for legal services than we could possibly manage with our human services grants. That's really important information for the Human Services Commission to have. So what have we done in the past, and what are we planning to do in the future with this information? Because I think it's really important. These are ways that people are seeking government services from Bellevue. So tracking that, I think, is critical. So what are we doing, and are we doing anything different in the future?
We have actually just enhanced our tracking system at Mini City Hall just this past year, actually around the time the pandemic started. And we actually make the categories even more detailed. In the past, it was just 4 categories, and now it's like, 20 categories. So we're tracking people even asking for county resources or federal issues. If they're asking for city resources, which department, and if they're asking for human services needs, we have different categories. Is it legal resources, in food, financial support, school education? So we have like all kinds of categories, and we can run reports, and we can see in any particular month, how that is different than last year. So we've been tracking those information, and just this past year, we made that even more comprehensive. And we'll share that information with human service staff as well.
Yeah, I'd love to have that information come forward to council as part of our budget.
Sure.
We do deep backgrounding on the budget before when we're really starting to gear up. I think this kind of stuff would be really, really useful.
Yeah.
So thank you. Great presentation.
Thanks.
Council members on.
Yes, thank you, Ying and Mike. I too just applaud your work and the memo that really gives us an idea. And I think it backtracks very closely to what we heard last year from the standpoint of what are the needs in our community related to COVID, right? Housing, legal services, food. And I really think about how meeting people where they are means that we already have the relationships before they need the help.
Yes.
Because during a phone call, you're not going to be building the relationships on a cold call, right? It is based on that word of mouth and the community trusting that we're here for them. So I really appreciate the work that you've done over the 25 years to build those relationships and have that trust, so people know that when they call, we help, whether that is services that are directly from the city or being able to tie them to the community-based organizations and in language that is in their native language to help them. Yeah. So I think that I really, really applaud that. And the enhanced data that you're collecting means that we can do even more, hopefully, predictive work in terms of where are the areas that we need to find these additional relationships and partners in our community. And my hope is that it isn't just the community-based organizations like ICHS, that it's also an opportunity to look at maybe some private companies that may be willing to provide some grants and help and support. And so those are things that I think are really important. I guess my 2 questions. One is that I'm hearing that a lot of our community, especially when English isn't their first language, are struggling with actually getting access to the vaccine. So they may be eligible, but they don't know how to navigate the system to even sign up to get a vaccine. So I wondered if you can comment about that. And then the second one is that I can only appreciate how hard it must be for the staff at Mini City Hall to field all the calls, not being able to work with people in person. So I was curious about what kind of self-care we're providing for our staff to make sure that they are able to stay engaged, because this is really hard work, especially when you talk about the mediation work around the landlord-tenant issues so that people don't become evicted and homeless. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Your first question about the vaccine, actually, we are hearing a lot from folks calling us and kind of asking that information. As you probably know that right now the rollout is a little bit of difficult. Lots of people are having trouble getting an appointment, and a lot of folks who call us, they have issues, with like even just not being really savvy on the computer. Our seniors, right? So when they call us, we walk them through the process of kind of like, do you get a computer? Do you do you know this? And we kind of walk them through the process a little bit because of privacy issues. We cannot get all the information, right? But we do walk people through, just provide a little bit of hand holding and kind of like talk them through it about how to actually get your eligibility, right? You have to actually go to the Base Finder website and kind of, you know, look at that if you're eligible for that. And so we do a lot of hand holding on that front, just to kind of build trust with people. And then people call us and they say, well, should I get a vaccine? Should I not get a vaccine? And that sort of thing we don't usually advise people on, but we tell people the facts and the information. We want to make sure those things are accessible and accurate. So we give people that information they need, and then they can make the decision themselves. And then we also provide a little bit extra support when they are trying to access information. So that's what we are doing for that. And your second question is self-care, and thank you so much for that question. I think the staff really appreciate that comment. It's really a difficult time, right, for all of us to kind of hearing the heartbreaking stories sometimes, and then, you know, spending like an hour on the phone with folks, and, you know, going through some really hard times. And right now, actually, Mike and I are putting together some kind of training and for our staff, just to, while they're navigating the system with the residents, you know, how do they, you know, protect themselves and then kind of care for themselves in order to, you know, actually provide support for the community. So we're really aware of that, and we are trying our best to kind of provide training and support for our staff in order to kind of move forward, because we know that the pandemic is not going to end soon, right? It's, you know, still like at least a year out. So we know that we will have to continue to provide the support. So we will actually provide our support to our staff in order to, you know, make them more solid on providing support for the community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great presentation, Ying. Thanks. And also thanks to Mike and all the other people in the Mini City Hall that's providing the service to the population during this last year, when there's a lot of additional needs. I'm sure, you know, that's never been anticipated. And so, you know, you guys must be working really very, very hard. And as many people have already commented, you know, government is best when people are. So Mini City Hall is where, you know, lots of folks. Crossroads is where, you know, we have lots of diversity and lots of, you know, rental people, you know, so on. And that the people who need actually government help the most. So I think it's very important. And Crossroads has always been proven to be the city's crossroads of the world, actually. So it's very appropriate. I don't think it's intended to be that when it was first called, with Terranomics, you know, being the owner with Ron Scher, with this vision to have such a diverse place where people, you know, are really meeting people and working together. But at the same time, you know, because of the fact that they are diverse, there are language barriers, and other barriers, and culture barriers. So the Mini City Hall is right there, and these people don't know how to access government, you know, and so you are there with them. So I think you are doing a very important job. And so thank you, I appreciate that. And I think we need to continue, as you mentioned, with what's happened last year. So I was just curious, you know, whether with the city growing more and more, we are doing more and more human service programs. And what are the needs that has been particularly demonstrated, you know, from this last year? And are you keeping, I know, you know, you mentioned, I think Councilmember Robertson mentioned, keeping track of data information, because that's going to help us, you know, the fact that we are there for the people. At the same time, we are there to also know the information closer to the people firsthand. So that's going to help us, the city, to do more necessary things to meet their needs. So I'm hoping that we have those information, those data, you know, before and during and maybe even after COVID-19, so that we can know what are the population, what are the needs, and what are the things that we may be able to be prepared to take care of their needs. So I think that'd be very useful. That'd be good to share with us, like Councilmember Roberts mentioned. Other than that, I just feel that there's a lot of things we, I'm sure can do and will do, and you are doing that. You are working with the resources you got the best you can, and we can spend a lot of time just talking about specific needs people may have, but what we need to do is we need to be able to help you to be in position to understand that and to be able to respond. I think that's the city council's job, is to know what the city needs, and in particular area, and as a city as a whole, in whatever areas we can meet their needs and do what we can to help them. So thanks again. I very much appreciate what you do. So as soon as we have more information from you and know what we can do, I think the city can prepare to come up with the resources, whatever that's necessary to take care of our citizens. So again, you are where people are, and this government works the best. Thank you.
Thanks.
So Ying, I was so impressed when I was reading the packet and I was looking at the attachments with the materials that you're providing for people in Bellevue. It's really, I'm so proud of the work that you're doing, and I want to thank you and everybody for filling this incredible need in our city. I have to think that with COVID vaccinations being the most difficult thing for some people to achieve, including myself, that there's a lot of questions out there from our community of people trying to figure out how to navigate this. So are we able to provide any of our residents guidance on how to get vaccinated?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think right now, because, the situation's, not really like an even situation. I would say some folks have a family doctor, some folks don't, some folks are feeling comfortable going to the hospital, some folks only feel comfortable going to the grocery store. So the needs are very different. But what we're doing right now is kind of, make sure that we provide really accurate information to folks so that they know the facts and then, where to get it. And the second thing is that we are doing a lot of hand holding with folks, with the face finder. Lots of people even have trouble kind of getting on that website and don't really know how to start doing that. So we, when we are on the phone with folks, we try to do hand holding and kind of help them, just step by step. We have a lot of screenshots, right, that we kind of like printed out for people, and then just on the phone kind of guiding them through step by step and kind of trying to sign up. And that's been, slow, but it's been helpful. And then lots of seniors actually really appreciate that. So we've been just doing that for now.
Great. Well, good luck with that, and thank you again. Yeah. Okay, so we're moving on to our next item on the study session, and I want to pause here for a moment to note that one of my favorite staff members, Mr. Nicholas Matz, this may be his last meeting with us. He's too young to retire, but he's going to do it anyway. And he's just been remarkably good for our city. I've enjoyed working with him. And I just want to give him a nice send off here. And then when we do comments and questions, you can all add your part as well. But go ahead, Mr. Miyake, and introduce our next topic here.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As you all know, the city conducts an annual process to consider amendments to its comprehensive plan. And tonight, staff is introducing to the council the privately initiated applications and a summary of the process moving forward. This is informational. There's no direction that's being required by council. This is actually being reviewed by the Planning Commission as well. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Emil King for presentation. Emil.
Thank you, City Manager Miyake. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse, and members of council. On behalf of the Community Development Department, Nicholas Matz and I are here tonight to provide you an introduction to the 2021 Annual Comprehensive Plan amendments. As you know, Bellevue's Comprehensive Plan is the foundational policy document that guides growth and development in the city. The plan stems from years of community work, foresight, and thoughtful planning. Both city-initiated and these privately initiated potential changes to the plan, as we will highlight tonight, are given careful consideration through a defined annual amendment process. Before we begin our presentation, I wanted to say a few words about staff member Nicholas Matz. This is Nicholas's final week with the city. Nicholas will be taking a new position with the city of Normandy Park, Washington, as their new community development director. While Nicholas will remain a Bellevue resident, his 31.5-year career with the City of Bellevue organization will be coming to a close. It's fitting his final presentation with council will involve the comprehensive plan. He's our go-to staff expert on the plan and has worked on countless facets over the years. In addition, he's been integral to Bellevue's annexations over the decades, the Great Neighborhoods Initiative, and has supported many Bellevue council members on regional planning bodies. Nicholas is loved in the community. I've personally worked with Nicholas for over 20 years and will miss him as a coworker, but I know he's very excited about this next chapter in his career, and staff are giving him a well-deserved send-off. I'd now like to turn things over to Mr. Matz to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Emil. Mayor Robinson. This could be harder than I thought. Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Noenhuis, and members of the council. It is my honor to present you with information about this year's 2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment process and the privately initiated applications that we will be presenting review for you tonight. We did receive 2 of these privately initiated amendments by the September 15th, 2020 deadline. You recall that 2 years ago, you amended the land use code to create a larger window of opportunity for plan amendments to come in. So now they come in by September for the following plan review year. This has paid off for us because of your intent in regards to creating more time for the Planning Commission to get the information, the data, and the review time that they need to look at plan amendments with a healthy and informed eye. And so this year, as I mentioned, we saw 2 of them. We'll talk to them about you tonight. We will have a 3-part agenda tonight. I'll quickly review the annual amendment process, building on Assistant Director King's comments, point out the 2 sites, and then we will tell you what's next. The annual plan amendment process has these essential 6 steps to it. Under the Growth Management Act, we must consider these amendments no more frequently than once a year. These are specific steps in a general timeline. The annual plan amendment process includes 2 steps where threshold review evaluates an application and final review examines the merits of that application. Each of those steps has a Planning Commission study and hearing, and each of them has City Council. With threshold review, you are asked to establish a work program. With final review, you are asked to take action on recommendations made to you by the Planning Commission itself. An equally important part of the annual plan amendment process is our public engagement, where we engage residents, stakeholders, and communities in the plan amendment process. There are 2 essential parts to this engagement process: the role of the Planning Commission as your designated legislative body to conduct studies and hold the hearing and make recommendations on plan amendments. And then the other part is to focus on the tools that we have available for community engagement, made even more so important during this time of the pandemic with the Planning Commission and Plan Amendments websites, our identification around informing parties of interest, and our multi-pronged noticing efforts, everything from physical signs on the property to using the web and the city's other information and engagement tools to their maximum. We have 2 applications this year, and I will spend more detail on them, but I'm just showing you the citywide map now because another key aspect of the city's annual amendment process is to advise the community of the entirety of applications that would be before them in any plan amendment year. This year, the Dash application on Northeast 8th at 124th, and the 15 Lake Bellevue application, which is located on Lake Bellevue. In more detail, The 15 Lake Bellevue application is a privately initiated application that proposes a map amendment from Bell Red General Commercial to Bell Red Office Residential. It's a little under 3 acres. It's a 2.8 acre site. They've also asked to amend policy SBR 96, which stipulates a maximum building height allowance in areas that are adjacent to nodes. The second application is the Dash Glendale project, a privately initiated application that proposes a map amendment from multifamily medium, its current designation, to neighborhood mixed use on 2 parcels totaling approximately 7.5 acres. Here's an orthographic of the 15 Lake Bellevue site. It's outlined in red there. You can see the location in the building and its surface parking. The request, and I'll show you the comp plan map in a minute. The request, as I mentioned, is to be able to create a larger footprint, larger density, and to be able to provide a mixed use opportunity on the site with roughly 12 to 15 floors of commercial development, including housing on those on that site. It's in proximity, close proximity to the Wilburton Hospital light rail station here. The area that is involved in all of the BRGC, let me go to that. Here you get, again, you'll see the area again, the BRGC is this area that's shown in pink. The balance of the Bell Red sub area is to the north and to the east. Second application, the Dash application, as I've mentioned, multifamily medium to neighborhood mixed use. This site here, you'll see it's at Northeast 8th and 124th. It's a 2-part site split by Northeast 10th right here. So there's the Dash site here and Glendale site here. These are the existing projects. You heard Chris Buchanan reference them earlier in her oral comments before you this evening. Dash is also, as she mentioned, Dash was here originally in 2018. Made that application for the NMU. The city recommended, city council, planning commission staff recommended that it be considered within the Wilburton land use study process. As Ms. Buchanan has noted, the time frame that is necessary for Dash to address some of their financing considerations makes it more suitable for them to come back here into the 2021 annual plan amendment process. And just on a technical detail, they did make the 3-year rule. So they're back before you in substantially the same application as was done previously, and for substantially the same reasons, to create actual affordable housing on the ground in Bellevue in proximity to employment centers, light rail, and other mobility features. Here again is their application laid out against the comprehensive plan map. You can see their existing designation here. Bell Red is up to the north here. They are adjacent to and included in the Wilburton study area project, which extends to the west and south here. You also see Northeast 8th Street along here. Fun fact, I did comp plan amendments on this site right here, directly to the south and directly to the southwest. So it's been a while. In terms of advising you what is next, we've already completed an introductory briefing to the Planning Commission on December 9th. We have published the list of received applications beginning the plan amendment and engagement process, and the Planning Commission has held its threshold review study session and discussion of geographic scoping on January 7th. We're before you tonight on February 8th to provide your introductory briefing memo, and then we will move forward with additional steps, as I mentioned, in threshold review and final review, culminating in City Council action in December. As City Manager Miyake mentioned, tonight is an informational briefing. Our 2021 review does have a slight twist in that we will integrate private and any publicly initiated plan amendments to complete final review by July. And the purpose of this is that we are bringing on the first 2 of the great neighborhoods, neighborhood area planning neighborhoods, Northwest Bellevue and Northeast Bellevue, into final review for Planning Commission consideration and hearing. The purpose of moving final review to a July hearing date is so that City Council has sufficient review for the neighborhood plans in the fall. We saw early on that bringing the privately initiated, any public initiated, and of course the neighborhood plans themselves to you for one study session in November and action in December was not going to be sufficient to be able to engage on this work. And so we have adjusted the review schedule to be able to integrate all of those things into a single set of council considerations. And again, this is aligned with the Growth Management Act's direction that comprehensive plans be amended no more than once a year, but that they be accomplished in a cumulative and integrated manner. With that, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So I will call in this order. I'll start with Councilmember Barksdale since he's liaison to the Planning Commission. Then go to Robertson, Stowe, liaison, Deputy Mayor, and myself. So Councilmember Barksdale.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have any questions or comments related to the CPA, but I do just want to say, Nicholas, I've enjoyed working with you in my former role as Planning Commissioner and the current role as the Council Liaison to the Planning Commission. I've enjoyed our conversations, and you've always made our meetings very engaging and fun. I know Commissioner Malakuchin will miss having you present. I know he's still always raise the topic of those presentations. So we'll miss having you, but congratulations, and it's a well-deserved opportunity. So thank you for your
service. Thank you, Councilman Barksdale. Thank you.
Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you. So I already personally spoke to Nicholas because I've worked with Nicholas for, oh my gosh, 18 years now. When I was first put on the Planning Commission, and he staffed me very ably on some of my regional committees, most recently on my Growth Management Planning Council assignment, and very ably. We will miss you. But I'm pleased for you that you have a new adventure ahead. You know, I don't know if we're still going to be calling you up, asking you about the comp plan internally here because you're such the expert. But yes, thank you for all your work. You know, it's really been a pleasure, and I hope that we will still see you around. Your kids are too old for me to see you on the pool deck anymore. I used to see Nicholas on the pool decks because his kids also were swim racers. But hopefully we'll still see you around since you're still just a Bellevue resident. So not just, but you know, one of the greats. So I have a couple of questions about the CPAs. I know this is just a briefing, but we've been talking a lot at this council about affordable housing, about the need to get on with some of our comp plan updates, the land use code changes, the bigger plans. And so, and I know that many of us have a lot of heartburn with making sure that we do get affordable housing, particularly at the transit-oriented development areas, which from my look at the map, both of these projects would be considered TOD. They're right near the light rail station. One is in the Bellred corridor, which we were supposed to do a look back on 7 years ago. And the others in Wilburton, we have a CAC report that is pending. So you mentioned briefly that if the council wants to initiate any comp plans that you have set the schedule for that. Were we planning to initiate the Wilburton work this year? Because I would love to. I would love to kick that off, have a couple of meetings at council soon, send it to the Planning Commission this year while we finish up East Main. Is that something that could happen?
I can go ahead and speak on behalf of that. So right now we're doing the pre-launch work for Wilburton. So we're talking with the other city departments about the technical work that still needs to happen for Wilburton. We see it as a high priority for the city, but also see a couple other things that we need to wrap up first before we shift resources over to it. Those efforts are ongoing. We have the East Main Luca that we're continuing to work on and hope to be able to report back to council soon on that, as well as the Grand Connection design guidelines that we have in the fourth quarter of that effort, hoping to wrap up. So we can work with the city manager's office on how best to report back on work planning things, but we are in that essential pre-launch phase before we get back into the CPA and Luca phase for that.
Okay, well, I would love to get that sent to the Planning Commission this year. I'll just say that. That would be a priority of mine. And will the planning commission, since the one of these is in the Wilburton study area, will the planning commission be able to consider the CAC report as part of their due diligence on this comp plan amendment and how it matches up with that? I know that's not official policy yet, but it's kind of the roadmap.
Yes, ma'am. They're actually both in the Wilburton study area. The 15 Lake Bellevue site is in both Belred and Wilburton, and we're going to address that. But the CAC report was instrumental in the 2018 work around the comprehensive plan amendment for Dash Glendale. And we've already alerted the Planning Commission to that fact, and we will certainly be making that part of the staff recommendation on threshold review, the role that recommendation played and what it sets forward as a alternative path for Dash Glendale.
Okay, great. So the one more question is, and I know that we've talked a lot about, like I said, the affordable housing. It would be good for both the planning, but let me first ask an introductory question. Are both of these comp plan amendments, if they are granted, would they lead to higher heights and or higher densities on both parcels?
Yes, in a nutshell, yes. The NMU is the city's most flexible mixed-use district designation outside of the employment center areas. To be able to accomplish that, it matches up measuring density by FAR with additional height, but not any kind of heights associated with employment centers. The 15 Lake Bellevue site is also contemplating not only in their desire to pursue the BROR2 designation, which has a different measure of FAR and higher densities, but to have a higher building height. And that's why they've also asked to amend the policy, which stipulates a 45-foot height limit on BRGC properties. They're hoping to increase that height limit more in line with the BROR2, which can go up to, I believe, 125 feet.
Okay, that's helpful to know. So for me, if we're going to be significantly giving more FAR, more height, more density, particularly for developments that will involve residential, I would personally really like to see either a big a requirement for affordable housing as part of getting to that density. That's how we set Belrad. That's kind of the direction the city's been going as an incentive. So it would be good for both council and the planning commission to have an understanding of what we can and what we cannot do through the comp plan, whether we can put a footnote on, that they can only get to this with a certain percentage of affordable housing, fee in lieu, whatever it is. I think that would be helpful to know our authority on that. And second of all, if we have the authority to do that, I think it'd be really important that we geographically scope this appropriately, because while we're pending all these big initiatives that are still yet to come, I don't want to just have a whole bunch of one-offs. So, so I hope that the Planning Commission will look very closely at the geographic scoping, particularly if there's an ability to have an incentive for affordable housing on these parcels or the area surrounding. So,
Understood.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, first off, I want to also thank Nicholas for all the work. And, I worked with him going on 9 years now, over 9 years. And a couple of things that I really remember about him and have enjoyed is being with him at meetings, going out to the community. I remember one particularly, a long meeting at Newport Hills some time ago, when we had a big conversation about, I think it's the first proposal there. And it was a very robust community engagement. And I was there I think it was first year when I was mayor, and I was there to make open comments, but I stayed for the whole thing. And it was, and I enjoyed going to those, but Nicholas always ran a very good meeting, and people listened. He, made things go smoothly in the meetings to the extent you can when you have people who are really, geared up about things. But it was, and I think he applied that always in that. And the other thing I wanted to say is that about him is that, and I guess you'll be here, so you continue work on this, but the work he's done on the Bellevue Youth Symphony has just been amazing. I mean, he's done that And it's always enjoyed going to those. I haven't done that in a while, but again, just another facet of his personality and the work he does. And I appreciate that very, very much. And the other thing I wanted to say, Nicholas, I have a good friend who's on the city council in over there, and there are some great restaurants there that he and I have been talking about going to once we get through this pandemic. But I think you'll find some new venues there, which will be interesting, at least during lunchtime. So best wishes to you, and great career, and you're building on that. And so thankful for what the legacy you've left Bellevue, but you'll always be part of Bellevue. So best to you. I was prepared to say a lot of things, and Councilmember Robertson and I kind of have this thing sometimes where it's like these wavelengths go, together. And I really appreciate what she said on this, and I think this is an opportunity, in a sense, to really integrate. And I appreciate what Emil is saying, and I know that they're working on these different pieces and putting them all together. And it's not an easy task, but I'm heartened to hear that these things are moving along. And it seems to me that these two pieces coming now will give the Planning Commission and us eventually an opportunity to really look a little deeper in what is going on in Wilburton, how it connects to the other parts of it, and looking at the overall piece. But to me, it really doesn't make sense to take two segments in the Wilburton area and come up with some code, policy, and all just for them, without considering it in the whole context of the Wilburton project, which is just, again, a very amazing thing that will happen. And so I think we're all aware that whatever happens in these two places need to be comprehensive and also connected with the rest of it. And I thoroughly agree with Councilmember Robertson that affordable housing is a prime directive, and these two areas, two projects, offer a lot of potential for that, and a very important part, and it's very close to transit development. So I think we have great opportunity to work with the two developers and the people involved in the community to do something really amazing and enhance their property, at the same time enhancing the city. So I'm excited to see this go forward. Thank you.
Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Hey, Nicholas, we're gonna miss you. Yeah, we're gonna miss your very efficient way of getting things done. Don't say a lot more than necessary, but you mean what you do, and you bring on a lot of knowledge, to the project and the community that you're working with. And of course, your annexation work, is most prominent. And the city has done a lot of that in making us a city as we are, right? And so now you can start looking at either annexing or the ocean, the waterfront. You can take over how many miles? So what's the international line of shoreline?
I think the first target would be Vashon Island. It's directly across the sound. So
here we go. And the second target would be maybe Bellevue. So you can come back home, right? You can work and live here. Anyway, so we're gonna miss you. Yeah.
Thank you.
All the best for you. I'm sure you will have a great time, and you will do what you have done for Bellevue, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Question for Emil. I think Councilmember Robertson mentioned that we're doing these two pieces. And in fact, the communication we heard from the public, Glendale mentioned about Wilburton, and Wilburton project was stalled. And then, Councilmember Robertson mentioned very appropriately that, what's happening to that. My question is, what does it mean if we don't have the Wilburton plan look at or working together or finished? Why we're doing this separately, you know, with two pieces of property? What difference would that be? And of course, we would prefer you to have the Wilburton plan to get going. If it's one of our highest priority, we need to make sure we do that. And it just, so I don't know what does it take. You know, I think that's what the council is here for, to hopefully will help you to figure out, you know, how to make this work all in one piece rather than separately, and then they may have other complications and questions and you know, whatever it may happen. So my question for you is, number one, what impact would it be if it's done together or separately? Two, why can't we have a date certain plan to make sure this Wilburton plan gets going?
So thanks for that question, Councilmember Lee. We have been looking at the Wilburton plan as it relates to these projects. As Mr. Matz noted, the Dash site is just on the eastern edge of the Wilburton area. So we are looking at the proposal right now to go from R20 zoning, multifamily medium, to the NMU district, and seeing how that may sync up with the Wilburton area as a instructive piece. Again, we are just giving introduction to the council tonight. We're still very early with the Planning Commission process. That being said, at the Lake Bellevue site, we have looked into the Wilburton vision and the environmental impact statement that was created for the CAC work. As you know, that area in and around Lake Bellevue has some critical areas, had some soil conditions. So those all come into play when we're forming our staff recommendation about the ultimate work program that council would bless or not. So come April, we think we'll have more for council to consider. We just wanted to give a heads up on these two applications that we're in and the work that is still in front of us.
Okay, thank you. Ideally, we can speed up the Wilburton work, and then the two can kind of integrate into the whole picture so that we don't have to, you know, try to figure out one versus the other, and you know what decision we make, and you know figure out other things separately. But anyway, you heard us, and we will really appreciate you know coming with some certain plans and schedules. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you for the heads up. And I would say that, Nicholas, 31 years, we have been blessed that you have chosen to stay in Bellevue for 31 years and help us with all of the land use work that you have developed. And so I fully expect that Normandy Park will be blessed with your knowledge and expertise as they do their work down there. And so I wish you all the best down there, and recognizing that you'll still be a Bellevueite, that you won't be a stranger to us. And so we look forward to maybe running into you in the grocery store. With that said,
thank you, Councilmember Zahn.
Yeah, I echo the comments from the council that, you know, I think it would be really helpful to get an understanding of, right, as we look at all of the land use work that is ahead of us, from the Bell Red Look Back, Wilburton, East Main, really understanding the roadmap and the timing so that we can better understand what the staff are thinking about as well. And then the comment about affordable housing and making sure that we do not lose opportunity to make sure that our land use code really facilitates that. Now, with that said, I also want to make sure that we don't continue to say to an organization like Dash that you want to do the right thing, but let's just keep waiting because Wilburton, we're going to be working on it, but you know, a few more years pass. So I do think it's a balance of looking at how we plan out the work so we can move forward, and that those that are ready to go, that we don't just continue to tell them to wait. Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. First, Emil, very nice words for your departing colleague there. I think Nicholas even got maybe a little choked up there hearing some of those words. Nicholas, we're going to miss you, though. I know I am. I haven't had a chance to work with you as long as some of my colleagues, but have always greatly respected your professionalism and you certainly do leave a long legacy of 31 years here in Bellevue. So Normandy Park is certainly very lucky to have you. I'm so glad you're still staying in Bellevue. Although I disagree with my colleague, Councilmember Stokes, spend all your money in Bellevue, don't spend it in Normandy Park. Okay, we've got the better restaurants. I'm
Thank you,
just
Deputy
joking,
Mayor.
of course.
Thank you.
But best of luck to you. Really, really excited for you and this new opportunity, and we'll miss you. Yeah, I will echo just some of the comments made by my colleagues already. So yes, interested in as it relates to the Bell Red Look Back, Wilburton, et cetera. Yes, interested in the TOD as relates to affordable housing. Glad to hear that there's also an environmental impact as part of the threshold review with the Planning Commission. So look forward to hearing more about that as that comes back to us, and the Planning Commission is able to dig into this a little bit. But thank you so much for the update and for the information, and look forward to this coming back to us. Is it in April? Is that the timeline, Emil?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Well, I knew you were too young to retire.
It was touch and go, Mayor. It was touch and go.
Well, congratulations to you.
Yes, well, thank you. And I just seize a moment here to be able to address all of you. As I'm honored to have served this community. I think that doesn't go without saying, but I also felt fortunate to be able to learn from everybody that I worked with or for across paths. Council members, planning commissioners, stakeholders, staff. It's just an amazing time to be able to have had so much opportunity to learn from so many of you and learn about what makes Bellevue such a great place. I will stay here. I will live here. Fun fact number 2, Normandy Park was incorporated in the same month and year as Bellevue. And I see my desire and my willingness to get down and get grubby with neighbors, just as all of you done. And Councilmember Stokes, I do remember that evening in Newport Hills. That's an opportunity to continue to serve our communities. And I appreciate what I've learned from all of you and the ability for me to continue this legacy of serving our community. So thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. Well, unfortunately, I can't let you go yet because I haven't asked my question.
Of course, of course.
This is a coda. Okay, so I am concerned about Lake Bellevue being that it's a kettle lake, any environmental impacts that additional development will have there. But I know that that will probably be covered at the Planning Commission, but let's make sure that they look into that, please. And then I just want to describe that Dash property a little bit, because I have personal knowledge of it, having worked seeing clients in there for many, many years. And it is the only facility in Bellevue that provides independent and assisted living and takes Medicaid. So it is really already serving an affordable housing need that we have in Bellevue. So I'm very happy to hear that there are plans to put more affordable housing there, but it should actually surpass what we already have there. And I dearly hope that it serves the community as it is serving, and even more so than it's happening now, because we have so many people who live and are aging in Bellevue, and it's so nice for them to be able to go someplace like that they can afford and stay in the community. So there's a real need for a facility like that. In terms of Wilburton, it's nice that we tucked this property into the Wilburton area. I'm excited to see the plans finalized for Wilburton. It is on the periphery of our Wilburton plans. It's a very unique property. It's not, there are no single family homes around it. And it's on a busy street, it's on 8th, and it is in a major TOD, both from light rail perspective and BRT. So personally, I don't have any problems going high in this property, even maybe higher than the Wilburton zoning might allow, just because it is a unique placement in Bellevue. So I hope that we can look at it in the unique eye, with a unique eye that it has, and treat it in the way that maximizes the opportunities that are available there. So that's my only feedback. Okay, thank you. So we
Thank you all.
Okay, good night, Nicholas. Okay, we will move on to resolution 9890. Mr. Miyake, would you like to tee this up?
Yes, Mayor and council members. Resolution 9890 is a second amendment to the EPSCA interlocal agreement. And just by way of background, the Puget Sound Emergency Radio Network, also known as PSERN, is upgrading and replacing the countywide emergency public safety radio network, which is overseen by 4 voting members who make up the PSERN board. This was last presented to you earlier this year in terms of PSERN itself. The Eastside Public Safety Communications Agency, EPSCA, is one of the 4 members and is to select 1 PSERN board representative that represents EPSCA, and as well as an alternate. And to facilitate this, it's necessary to update the current EPSCA interlocal agreement. We are looking for direction tonight by way of resolution 9890, which authorizes execution of the EPSCA second amended and restated EPSCA interlocal agreement. And with a quick presentation and answer any questions that council may have is Fire Chief Jay Hagan, and I'll turn it over to him for a brief presentation. Jay?
Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse, members of council, and City Manager Miyake. If it's okay, I've shared my screen. Can you let me know that you can see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. I have a brief presentation for you this evening, and I would ask council's direction on adopting resolution 9890, authorizing the execution of the EPSCA, which is Eastside Public Safety Communication Agency, second amended and restated EPSCA ILA. So that's quite a mouthful. So let me try to break that down for you a little bit. To give you a little history, council authorized PSERN ILAs in both February of 2015 and October of 2020. And this basically ensured our participation in the newer countywide updated radio system. And tonight's business is about establishing our representation on the new governance board called the PSERN Operator Board. PSERN is an acronym that stands for Public Safety Emergency Radio Network. And if you can draw your attention to this graphic, EPSCA, we have been part owners of the Eastside radio system for many, many years. And our partners in that arrangement have been Kirkland, Issaquah, Mercer Island, and Redmond. And as EPSCA members, we will jointly be sending 1 representative from EPSCA to the new board, the new PSERN board. And so as City Manager Miyake just mentioned, there are 4 voting members in the governance arrangement. EPSCA, which is our shared vote, City of Seattle, King County, and Valleycom, which is all of the cities and towns in Southern King County. There are also 2 non-voting members, King County Fire Chiefs and King County Police Chiefs. And so again, the business tonight is about securing our representation on the new PSERN board. And with that, I would ask your guidance on the adoption of resolution 9890, authorizing the execution of the Eastside Public Safety Communications Agency, EPSCA, second amended and restated EPSCA ILA. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll count on council members. I'll let you raise your hand if you have a comment or a question. Something, everybody. Okay, starting with Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse.
Thank you. Jay, thanks for the great presentation, Chief Hagan. Just one question regarding, so the EPSCA members, so it's not a Bellevue specific vote. We're part of what, 5 or 6 members here, 5 members. So just want to make sure that in voting on anything in particular as it relates to the other PCERN members, that Bellevue's interests can still be heard and won't be muted by the other members. So is our relationship with the other members for something like this, is it on good standing? Do we have similar concerns, or if any issues do arise, will Bellevue's interests be heard?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse. Yes, I attend the meetings, the EPSCA meetings regularly on behalf of City Manager Miyake. The partnerships on this are strong. We're all tracking the same issues. The city manager of Kirkland is the current EPSCA lead to the PCERN board. We all share a common interest in watching what's happening. And I think that the relationships are strong, and our voice, will be heard along with our neighbors in this arrangement.
Great. Thanks, Chief Hagan. Any
more comments or questions? Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I move to adopt Resolution 9890, authorizing the execution of the East Side Public Safety Communications Agency, second amended and restated interlocal agreement.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, great, thank you. So this concludes the public portion of tonight's meeting. We're going to recess for executive session for approximately 30 minutes to discuss a matter of pending litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I, I think it is. And so we will have our next meeting next Tuesday, because next Monday is a holiday. And so we are, and we will be adjourned from the meeting will be adjourned from executive session. So we will leave you now, and council members, if you go back to your email that got you to the meeting tonight, there's another link that will get you to the executive session, and I will see you there. Thank you.